Okay, so I'm a historical reenactor, and that's kind of an important part of this story. I'm also a nurse, an ex-soldier, and a bunch of other perfectly normal things. But I do have this one slightly off-center hobby when I dress in clothes about 600 years out of fashion, and sometimes try to hit people with a very large piece of steel while dressed as a hood ornament. Now, someone really needs to write a psychological thesis on the subject, but for some reason, people dressed in historical clothes somehow become exempt from the usual social norms regarding sexuality and appropriateness. If you are dressed and armoured as a Viking and wandering the streets of central Sydney, women will let you pick them up and carry them away from their friends without a word of protest. Try it in everyday clothes and you'd be tasered within seconds, right? And it works the same for women in armour too. Otherwise normal men respond to armoured women in bizarre ways that are utterly outside the normal range of everyday human interaction. I don't know the full explanation for it, but it just seems to be the way that people are wired. So, I was at a particularly prominent and large medieval festival, or fair for any American listeners. The atmosphere was very immersive, and members of the public were encouraged to dress the part, while the 400-odd genuine reenactors performed a range of ye-olde activities around the grounds, and spent the rest of the time wandering about, lending an element of medieval colour to the proceedings. Armoured, I'm pretty cool if I do say so myself, but my 15th century civilian clothing is to die for. A crimson/silk doubled over black, thigh-high boots with spurs, and a pearl earring to boot. And so, I was wandering around the event one evening, being dashing and medieval and interacting with the public as we were encouraged to do. And yeah, I'll admit it, being a little flirty and taking mild advantage of the aforementioned sexual appropriateness disconnect that seems to take place when women are talking to a guy dressed a bit like Colin Firth in Shakespeare in Love. But here comes the disaster bit. After having fought and wondered and given 2 lectures, by the evening I was getting a bit weary and sat down for dinner at one of the many stalls selling food. There was a group of young ladies nearby, and playing the part, I engaged with them in character, and we all sat around talking, laughing, and mildly flirting for about an hour. Seconds after they left, one of them came racing back and whispered, "Hey, our friend really likes you. Here's her email address," and thrust a folded piece of paper into my hand, and then ran after her friends. Well, so far so good, right? Nothing boosts the ego quite like having someone give you her number unsolicited, and I was quite pleased. But when I got home, the first time I checked my email, there was already an email waiting for me from this young lady. She had been onto the festival's webpage and found my details there. I still managed to feel flattery in response to this, and after all, her email was incredibly nice and a little apologetic at taking such a step unsolicited, and she was cute and had seemed bright and funny when we chatted. So I replied, and we sent a few emails back and forth. Mildly flirty, but again, only a few, and when the first nude photos of her showed up in my inbox, several alarm bells went off in the back of my mind, which, being male, I ignored. Wow, how much of a stud are you that some woman you barely know is sending you naked photos of herself? Big self-congratulatory grins and self-backslaps all around, voices of caution firmly ignored. I got a little bit more flirty, and in response, she went into utter overdrive. The nude photos, which started out as flirty and artistic, became progressively more explicit, until they were soon the sort of thing that I think may even be illegal in Amsterdam. Still flattered, but finding the voice of caution getting louder by this time, I thought it prudent to discuss with her exactly what she thought she was doing. It was around this time that terms like love at first sight, soulmate, and marriage were first uttered. Now, I am no cad. I don't lead people on with no intention of following through, and I'm certainly not a user of the find 'em, fuck 'em, forget 'em school or any such. But this was a whole other order of magnitude beyond anything I had even considered, and so, attempting to be as diplomatic as possible, I politely declined any further conversation. At this point, it's still a funny anecdote, I guess. But when she hacked my email account, A character assassinated me on a number of online forums and associations I was a member of. It stopped being funny. When she out of the blue called my mother, yeah, my mother, who she told an amazing story about how I had led her on, made love to her, I never even kissed her, pressured her to terminate a pregnancy, and then left her when she miscarried after giving her nothing more than an STD. I wasn't upset. It was the explosive mother phone call that upset me, especially since I had no idea that any of this was coming. I was utterly blindsided. She also sent letters outlining a similar story to my employer, the organisers of the festival where we met, and even to the trashy current affair TV shows. Fortunately, most of the people she contacted gave me the benefit of the doubt, not least because they knew that we lived approximately 800 kilometers apart, and that my easily traceable movements pretty well confirmed that we had only met the once. So yeah, total bunny boiler. I've been lurking on Reddit for some time, because I have a sort of guilty pleasure for reading spooky non-fiction stories, particularly if they take place in the wilderness. Probably because I know that I'm too chicken shit to go camping alone or far from civilization. I've never experienced anything in my 34 years that I would consider remarkably creepy or unexplained. My dad, on the other hand, has had several experiences in his lifetime that are fairly strange and pretty disturbing. I just saw him the other day, in fact, and he gave me permission to share, so I finally decided to create an account, and this story has always especially chilled me. My dad grew up in Mid-Coast, Maine, and before I was born, in the 80s, the area around his house was pretty sparsely populated. My grandfather also used to own quite a bit of land, mostly woods, and nobody lived there for miles around. It was in the 70s, and he was out hunting in the woods behind my grandparents' house, a couple of miles out. He didn't get anything, but my dad has never really been much of a hunter. He mostly just likes to sit out there and enjoy the solitude and think. It was that time of the evening, too, just as it starts getting pretty dark, and he's thinking about heading back. And then he hears a harmonica playing further out in the woods, in the opposite direction of my grandparents, out where he knows nobody lives. He said the tune it was playing was sort of melancholy. Now, my dad is a pretty level-headed guy, and not scared easily. He decides to follow it and figure out where it's coming from. He heads in that direction, and as he's walking, he said the source of it keeps moving further away. He goes on a little bit farther, and every time, this creepy harmonica player moves further out into the woods. At this point, it was almost completely dark too, and he was honestly getting kind of freaked out. He said it felt like it was trying to lure him further out, so he just headed back home. A year or two later, he was out hunting in the same woods again, except it was in the middle of winter and a snowstorm. He's a true Mainer, and he was sitting up on a place we call Porcupine Hill. And it's named this because it's a rocky hill where porcupines make homes in these little caves. He was just sitting there, and once again, he heard the same harmonica playing the exact same melancholy tune. This time, he didn't try to follow it though, and just left. I grew up in this same place, and even when I was really young, nobody lived for miles in that direction from my house and my grandparents. Only recently have they cleared out a lot of trees and built housing developments. I have read similar accounts of people hearing harmonicas in isolated areas. I don't know any of the lore behind it, and my dad and his brothers have had other unexplained experiences in those woods. I have a very stable job, and a very good one at that. But sometimes you need extra money, right? I'm currently moving into a newer, bigger and nicer apartment, so I've been putting down payments and using money to move. By no means am I broke, but it's nice to earn some extra cash. I thought of selling some clothes that I never wear. I've already donated a lot of older clothes to the Salvation Army, but for clothes I never wore and that are worth some good cash, I decided to sell over Craigslist and Letgo app. The Letgo app has never failed me. Craigslist, well, I've never tried it before, but my friends have, and they've had some great experiences. I was trying to sell a very cute short-sleeved black and white flower dress for $12. I put my number down so I could just talk to people directly since I don't use my email too often. Side note, I posted a picture of me in the dress that my friend took, not showing my face and with a blank white wall background behind me. I got a text a couple of hours after I posted the dress, and here's how the conversation went.
Hey, I saw your dress on sale. Is it still available?
Yeah, it is.
It's kind of hard to see the dress in the picture you've posted. Do you have any more pictures of you in the dress?
At this stage, I've sent a picture of the dress on a hanger, one picture close up for detail, one to see the full dress.
I asked for pictures with it on. I'll just look at the ad tomorrow.
I never responded back. It was very alarming to have someone talk to me like that. Why would someone want to see the dress on? I mean, I guess I understand, but really? 2 days later, I got a weird phone call at 7 o'clock in the morning. By the way, this was my day off, and I usually keep my ringer on because I'm always on call. To see that it wasn't work and an unknown caller, I was pretty pissed, so I just let it ring. They called again right after, and I sighed and cleared my throat to answer. There was a raspy, gargled man's voice answering back to me.
Yes, hello. Are you the one selling the dress?
Yeah, I am, yeah.
I'm calling for my wife, and I have some questions.
In my head, I'm like, what? But I go with it.
My name is Mark, and yours?
I give him my name, but he fails many times and almost made me think, dude, am I being prank called or something? It was pretty frustrating because I told him and spelt my name about 20 times. We got over introductions and he eventually got into the questioning.
Is this a thick dress?
Yeah, it is.
Can it be worn as a fancy diner dress?
It can be. You can dress it casual or dressed up if you want.
Okay, how tall are you?
I'm 5'3".
Okay, so my wife's pretty short and around your height. Do you wear a bra with the dress?
She can wear it with or without. Mark continues to push if I've ever worn a bra with the dress, and I get short with my answers.
So, where are you right now? I feel like I've woken you up.
I decided to lie to cover myself. Yeah, I'm at a friend's currently.
A girlfriend's?
Just a friend's. I'm just not home, okay?
But did you sleep in the same bed as her?
Can we move on? I'm not home right now. His phone cut out and he calls back a minute later.
Sorry, my phone died. So, anyways, what size cup are you?
Excuse me? Listen, I don't feel comfortable answering this.
Is it a B or a C?
I'm not answering this.
You look big-breasted, very gifted. My wife has an ass, do you?
Listen, I don't want to answer this. You're making me feel uncomfortable. I'm going to hang up.
Does the dress ride your back when you walk? Does it show your ass?
I hung up. He decided to call over and over, and it's not like I can block his number because his number was unknown. By the 20th call, I answered to tell him off. Listen, I don't feel like
You know, I know where you live, and I want that dress.
I quickly hung up and cried. I didn't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I would understand if a guy wants a dress for his own pleasure, sexual or not, but at least tell me and not act like his wife needs one. Or does he have a wife? Why couldn't she call me herself? I don't know. I have so many questions. I'm legit scared, and this number, it just won't stop calling me. I even got an email that's not related to this about a guy named Mr. Anonymous asking for smelly old flats. Is this normal for Craigslist? I was 16 at the time. my family lived in a typical Midwest subdivision in a large town. Our subdivision was on the corner of a busy road and a not-so-busy road that eventually turns into a dirt road after a short distance. The other two sides of the subdivision are all woods, and this is important. Across the not-so-busy road is a trailer park that, when we first moved out to this town, when I was 9, had a serial pedophile rapist problem that sort of scared my family as well as most of the families in our neighborhood. You see, my family had a house on the edge of the subdivision, and the only thing that separated us from the trailer park was a grassy berm that wrapped around our subdivision. But we're also out in the middle of nowhere, and so there were no streetlights on the not-so-busy road, and it was very dark at night. So, every night, we would lock down our house, double-check all the deadbolts, bar our two big sliding glass doors and easily accessible windows, draw the sliding wooden blinds in front of those big glass doors. That was the routine. I know, it seems like overkill, but my parents didn't want guns in the house, and we were on the outskirts of town, and it would take a while for a police officer to respond in our neck of the woods. At the time that this event happened, we had two Jack Russell Terriers that always slept with my parents in their room with the door closed. Every night, and I mean every single night. But by sheer luck, not on this night. Our male Jack Russell, Jack, was known to be territorial and aggressive, but only if he was sleeping and you tried to move him. He never bit anyone, but he would snarl his teeth at you. That night, we were all on the couch watching a movie in the living room. When we got up after the movie, he snapped at my mum and slightly nipped her finger. My mum was upset and put the dog in his crate. She was so mad that she even left him down there when she went up to bed. One other thing that was out of place for the night was that my mum also forgot to pull the big sliding wooden blinds in front of the big glass sliding doors in our living room. These doors lead out to the back patio that face the berm and the not-so-busy road. When we didn't have our light on, it was pitch black. Jack's crate was right in view of these windows. Well, everything seemed normal until about 1 a.m. At 1 a.m., we all woke up to Jack going berserk. Jack had a history of going nuts over other animals. Cats, horses, birds, squirrels, etc. He had even almost killed one of our cats before, so we were used to having to react quickly to his alarm barks. My mum and I were the first one into the hallway, and we raced down the steps and ran into the living room to make sure the cats were fine. Jack was a tricky bastard, and he had gotten out of his crate before. But everything was fine. There were no cats around. My mum let Jack out of his cage, and he bolted to the glass doors and started going crazy. My mum and I kind of both looked at each other, thinking that the dog was crazy. So we flipped on the patio light and looked outside. Nothing was there. We decided not to let the dog out in case we couldn't get him back though. So my mum flipped off the light and closed the blind and brought back Jack up to bed. The next day, my sister and I were coming up the driveway when we saw our mum walking up the hill in our backyard from chatting with our backyard neighbour. She had a very concerned look on her face. When we asked her what was wrong, she told us that our neighbour's tool shed had been broken into. Our neighbour was a young, well-to-do, handy father that had a bunch of really nice tools and hardware equipment, but he said it was weird, that the only thing he was missing was a screwdriver. Then he mentioned that my friend Ashley's family, who lived 2 doors down from him, also had an incident last night. So my mum went in and called her mum. As my mum talked to my friend's mum on the phone, I threw some clothes in the dryer and started working on my homework in the living room. When my mum hung up the phone, she was sheet white, and she looked straight at me. I asked her what was wrong. My mum proceeded to tell me that last night, my friend's mum and younger brother happened to fall asleep in their basement watching a movie, and at about 1:30 a.m, she woke up to scraping and shuffling outside her glass walkout. Her mum ran up and woke up her husband to go check it out. He tried to brush it off, but he humoured her. My friend's dad happened to be a supervisor at Chrysler, and always had to keep his phone on him, even when he slept. As he pulled open their blinds and flipped on their back light, he was face to face with a very large man. My friend's dad was able to call the police from his cell phone, but they later found out that their phone lines were cut, and their upstairs glass doors had also been tampered with. The police didn't show up for another half hour, but they brought a canine unit. The dogs were able to track the man's scent to the dirt road, but they ultimately ended up losing him. As my mum finished telling me this, the dryer exhaust kicked on, and when it does, the vent is right near the big sliding glass doors in the living room, and the glass fogs up. As the glass fogs, my eyes go directly to a massive handprint near the handle, positioned only in a way that where you were trying to force the door open. My mum quit talking, and all of a sudden, my family was just staring at this handprint. We all looked at our hands, and it was way bigger than mine, my mum's, my sister's, and even my dad's. We reported our experience of the night to the police, and they came to check out and take pictures of the handprint. They never ended up finding the guy, but the police had some suspicions. My sister, Ashley's two sisters, and I, we were all runners and frequently ran around our subdivision and along the dirt roads. The open layout of our subdivision would enable someone to observe our habits from afar without even knowing you're being watched. And after some quick realizations that this guy didn't attempt to break into Toolshed neighbor's house and wasn't after expensive equipment, that he didn't try to break into the house with the giant Rottweiler, but seemed to be targeting houses with young high school girls, well, we all came to the same conclusion. Jack, without a doubt, saved us from something potentially horrible that night. G'day mates, it's Busta here. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks again to the Hive members that bravely shared their stories for us all here, and I hope you guys are all doing really well. For the chance to have your story feature in a video, you can send your story to my email, which is in the description below. If you would like more scary stories too, you can click on the card at the top right of your screen or on one of the annotations on your screen right now. As always guys, it would be awesome if you could like, share, comment and subscribe if you're new. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram for updates throughout the week. And also, if you would like content early and completely advert-free for as little as $1 a month, feel free to click on the link to my Patreon account and sign up there for regular MP3 format stories. Thanks again for tuning in and for all the love as always, guys, and I'll see you mates in the next one.